It costs money to die. It's not free to die. And when you're not organized, it is a nightmare. And I'm a really big advocate of people using an advisor. Trust me, you do not want to be the one calling that 1-800 number. You want the advisor to be using their own personal number where stuff's going to get done and all you have to do is sign the documents. There can be a lot of anxiety about making sure things are the way that they want them. I love that feeling of somebody feeling like, okay, I can breathe. I know that if something happens to me, like the money is going to go the way that I want it to. I cannot explain how good that feeling is. You have a choice. You can make an experience make you better or bitter. And if you choose the bitter route, it's going to spill into everything. I finally made this decision that I was going to show up and make the most of every day. That really changed everything.
You're listening to the She Lift Project podcast, a show dedicated to helping women achieve higher levels of success in the workplace. No matter where you are in your career, we want to help you grow. Now here's your host, Cynthia Kirkpatrick, a CPA, CFP, and Senior Financial Advisor at Moneta Group.
Welcome to another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. I'm Cynthia Kirkpatrick. Thanks for joining us. And today's going to be a fun conversation with Jennifer Belmont Jennings. And I realize I say that before I say she's an estate planning attorney at MGD Law, but I swear to you, this is going to be a fun conversation because not only is she an estate planning attorney, she is a mother, she's on boards, she's had a diverse path and background to where you're at today. And if you follow her, or maybe you should, on social media, you'll have some fun there too. So thanks for joining us, Jennifer.
Thank you for having me.
Anything I missed out in that? And we'll get to a lot of it because you're like many of the women who are on the podcast and just in Think in Life. It's not a linear path that you've gotten to where you're gotten. So we'll get through a lot of it. But, when we talk about attorneys, there's all types of attorneys, but you specialize in estate planning.
Yes, I do. So I started out actually, well, the linear thing is pretty relevant. I was a 2009 law school graduate, which means I graduated right in the middle of the financial crisis. So I was the last class going in thinking it was a good idea to spend this much money on law school. And then halfway through, they were like, oh, oops, sorry, the economy's terrible. None of you are going to have jobs, or you're going to get them and the offers will get rescinded and it's going to be terrible. And so you can't really quit halfway through, right? So I did end up getting a job and I did some political consulting, and then it was like, oh, we love having you and you're welcome to come sit in your office. We just can't pay you anymore.
That's a problem.
Yeah. So, and then I ended up starting out, I did get a job at a law firm, and I started out doing family law and estate planning. And I really liked the estate planning. I did not love the family law. I had a rule, you had to love your kids more than you hated your spouse. And I could control my clients, but I couldn't control, other people's clients. And, the problem is when I decided, I didn't want to do any more family law. And I was doing a lot of it. Like I just was at that phase where, when you're just starting out, you don't have tons and tons of people who know who you are and who are like, I'll give you thousands of dollars to do your estate plan or give you your money. It takes time to build that reputation and get the experience. And so a lot of what I was doing was the family law. And I decided I just didn't want to do it anymore, but it was still a really bad economy for lawyers. So I was applying for jobs against people with like 10 or 15 years of experience for the same job. I even called someone once when I didn't get one. I was like, you're making a mistake. I was like, I would be amazing at this job. And the person laughed and like, we're sure you are. Like you would, but like people with 10 and 15 years more experience are applying for these, like entry-level lawyer jobs.
Okay, before we move on from that, because I don't think most people would, have the guts or the gumption or the whichever, whatever you want to call it, to call them and just be like, you're making a mistake. Like, how did that, were you just frustrated? Did it happen too much? Like, that's amazing.
There's probably a little bit of frustration and desperation. And was like, what do I have to lose? I'm just going to get rejected again. No, I knew I would do a great job, and I thought maybe this will be a better way to make them realize I should go, to the next round. And I guess I got the guy got a laugh for the day, but that was about it. He laughed at me, but it was a really hard time. Anybody who's worked during those times knows how difficult it was. So that's when I had to kind of shift gears a little bit and start thinking outside of the box and thinking, okay, what am I going to do? And so I started thinking about, who do I know in town? And I'm from here. And I knew that there were financial places, and I thought, oh, maybe I could get a job in compliance. And then I knew somebody whose dad worked at a place, and I was like, oh, maybe he knows somebody. And then he was like, oh, as a lawyer, you could be a good advisor. And have you ever thought about that? And I was like, no. And, and then, so I ended up doing that for a while, and almost 10 years, did the whole CFP certification thing, and was a wealth advisor. And then when things just didn't, end up working out at where I was like, you know what, I think I want to go back to practicing law, because I was doing a lot of the legal stuff in that role, but I wasn't practicing law. I was, reviewing the estate planning documents, tax returns and things, and working with the estate planning attorneys. And I just was like, you know what, I really miss being a lawyer. That's really what I want to do. And so I made a few phone calls. It was a much easier job search that time, just because I think I'd, built a reputation, and I had, an online presence and a lot more experience, and went back to practicing law. And I don't even know if that was the question you asked me, but I just decided to go down that road and tell you my backstory. So
no, yeah, I mean, we did. And I would imagine having experience, me still in it, wealth management. I mean, you're seeing the reality of estate plans and estate documents. You're not just in an office doing the plan and then maybe checking in with that client every now and then. You're seeing it flow through the all the accounts, everything. So I'm sure that background and that experience really lent well to going back into at least I would think. Maybe it isn't.
It did. Even knowing how to do paperwork at a financial institution, right? And knowing what their forms look like and how this works and how the back office works, all of that stuff has been really helpful. And I think having an understanding of the investments and retirement benefits, there have been a lot of changes in retirement benefits. And that's something that there are a few attorneys who have studied that more than I have. I have poured into the regulations. I've poured into, the way this works. And so having that understanding of even how the math works, right, to do things for projections for estate tax purposes, it's very helpful. And so even though there were times, I will be honest, that I was not happy. I was not a happy person. I had to fight to put a smile on my face. There were times when I wanted to do something different, and maybe I had a lot of doors closed. And I think I had a little bit of a bad attitude. You can read about that. I co-authored a book with 22 other women attorneys about women in law discovering the true meaning of success. And I was sort of the I don't want to say Pollyanna chapter, because I don't think it's great to Pollyanna everything, but I do think you have a choice. You can make something, an experience make you better or bitter, right? And if you choose the bitter route, which is very easy to do, it's going to spill into everything. You're not going to be enjoyable person to be around. But when you decide to say, hey, okay, maybe I have to do something that I don't love at the moment, but I can show up every day and I can learn something. I have resources at my fingertips. I can show up with a smile on my face. I know we're not supposed to tell women to smile, but I'm sorry. When you don't smile, you look kind of like a jerk, and people don't want to talk to you. And men can smile too, right? This is not just women should smile more. But when you are approachable and warm and happy, and when you feel that way on the other side of the phone or wherever you are, it comes through and it sets a tone. And I think when I finally made this decision that I was going to show up and make the most of every day, that really changed everything. And it wasn't much longer after that some things worked out and some changes were made. But now I can see how every step along the way really made me that much better of an estate planner. I mean, as hard as some of that was, knowing how to argue with a back office at at a custodian to be you're wrong. That is not how this works. I don't think I would know that if I literally didn't understand their paperwork and how it worked.
Yeah,
So-
and custodians, here at Minetta we use like Schwab and Fidelity. So they hold the assets, they give you the statements, the tax documents, et cetera. They do what they carry out generally what the advisor requests or says to do. But
With
sometimes
the occasional letter from the lawyer being like, "You are wrong,"
Right.
and then we quote a bunch of things and we say, "I really hope this works," and that they think I know what I'm talking about.
it's interesting to me, you talk about, that smile on your face, because I know I've been there, and I know many people that I've met or have been in that chair who have said something similar, that they just couldn't, or they weren't going to work, or just that realization of, I'm not happy. Like, what was that like, or what led you to that, or what got you there, do you think?
I think there were times that I loved what I was doing, and there were components of it. And then there were also times that I felt like I was just sort of supposed to be doing something different. I wasn't getting to use all of the skills that I had, because I think, and you'll understand this, right? The financial industry, there are a lot of limitations on things that you're allowed to do, right? Like, and everybody's going to have different standards. There's some places where it's what's not only what's legal and ethical, we're going to add a layer of 20,000 extra rules. And some places are a little bit more flexible, and they're like, if it's legal and it's ethical, you can proceed. And I probably do better with a little bit more freedom and flexibility, because I have a lot of things that I enjoy doing, a lot of things that I think my personality is a lot for a place that has 20,000 extra rules on top of, the basics. And so I wasn't always able to do the things that I really wanted to do, that I felt like my brain was designed to do, not because one was good and one was bad. It's just there are more constraints put around you in financial services than there are on the legal side. I mean, we have plenty of other rules that we have to deal with, but I get to think outside of the box, and I get to, give different kinds of advice, and I get to be like, ooh, let's try this. This should work. And I don't have to go through, a bunch of layers of compliance in order to make something happen.
And I'll let you correct me if I'm wrong, because I am maybe generalizing a little bit. It sounds as though you were in a place where you couldn't truly be you, be fully you, in a respectful professional circle, but that it just wasn't the right cultural fit or place to, again, allow you to try things, to be you.
Yeah, I would say, because I've worked at more than one financial institution, and so each one is going to be different, right? And so it's definitely, there's more constraints, which understandably so. When you've got a huge company, right, you have to kind of play to the person who's most likely to get you in trouble, and you think about that, and so you kind of build the rules around that, and then sometimes when you're at a different kind of company with a different culture, that's a different set of rules, because the industry is also very different, right? You've got the broker dealer side, you've got the RIA side, and there's different rules that come along with that. And so I definitely had more freedom and flexibility, in one place versus another, but great opportunities and great resources, right, at different places. It's not like one's bad and one's good. It's just they're different, and you have to work within the confines that you have at the moment. And so I think for me, it not only was some of it the rule side, but being a lawyer. I mean, I don't even remember why I wanted to be one. I feel like someone just told me I should when I was young, and maybe because I like to advocate for people, and I like writing and drafting, and there's not as much of that on the financial planning side. It's more of the numbers, and that's fine. I mean, I can do life math. I mean, I'm not going to be like calculus. You would not want me to design a bridge that you had to drive over, but life math, tax math, like that, I can do that stuff. But I think I just like I think it's just really the way that my brain works is just more geared towards the legal side. And I'm just happier over there.
So finding the work and the environment, again, legal environment, whatever, that allow, like, just kind of comes back to what makes you happy, what drives you, what you love doing naturally. And, you know, again, I think some people stay stuck because they either don't know who they are, they don't know what makes them happy, or often, if I just stick this out, it can't be that bad. Others are doing it. Like, if I just stay here, and they keep that frown or that no smile on. And as you said, it does bleed into the aspects of our lives.
And sometimes you have to do things you don't want to do. I think there's this misconception, and I know I sound like our parents when we were growing up, oh, what's wrong with this generation? And, you know, everybody's worse than we were. And I mean, I think we all have problems with every generation, but I do think that there is a much bigger sense of instant gratification and wanting things now, and which is easy to get that way, especially with social media, right? Like, everything is at your fingertips. When we were growing up, we didn't have that stuff, right? You had no idea. I had like 17 magazine and like Bop or whatever with Jonathan Taylor Thomas, JTT. That was like, you know, I mean, I didn't have an Instagram page to follow where you could see everything that was going on and what other people were doing. And you do have to put your time in, and that the ability to do more of what you want does come with experience. And you have to also be in a phase of life where you can also handle some of the risk, right? Like, you know, I didn't have the freedom to take as much risk when I was earlier in my career, but as you grow and you earn more and you save more and you have more of a cushion, more flexibility, you can sometimes, you know, take different risks, or you can afford to show a little bit more of your personality. But you have to learn how to read the room, right? And you have to understand that not everybody's going to like that. And sometimes you do have to tone it down a notch. It's not saying don't be yourself. It's just don't be a fool. You know, nobody else, the person signing your paycheck kind of gets to decide what they like and what they don't like about you, as long as it's within the law, right? You know, they're not breaking any laws with it. But you do have to put your time in, and you have to do things that you're not going to want to do. And that's just the way life works. It's not, we don't always get what we want when we want it.
And that's a really important caveat or layer to all of this, because nothing is ever perfect. My husband would probably say I'm perfect, but beyond that, he's sitting.
Mine.
Yeah, of course. Yours isn't here. Mine's in the corner. But, you know, nothing's ever perfect. And you do have to earn that credibility, earn that reputation, read the room, be smart, you know, show up appropriately, and earn that time or that ability to be whatever you want to call it, whether it's a little bit more you, or take risks, or, okay, now I'm going to post on social media. Whereas maybe before, when I was 24 and 25, just starting out, I wouldn't be posting about my career on social media. So I think that's a really good point, that everybody, sometimes we have to pay dues and do things that we don't want to do to get to the level that we want to get to.
Yes. And so I think I always say, don't be discouraged when you have to do those jobs that you're not thrilled about. But that's where finding some of the value in them really does help. If you can see that it's true, every job does have value, right? There are reasons for that job. There are things that you don't even think about. You know, it could be like a matter of public health, right? You think about trash getting picked up, like the plague. I mean, we don't want one of those again, right? Somebody's got to, you know, when you're cleaning something, you're preventing us from another bubonic plague. I mean, that's important. And so I think when you can find some value in what you're doing and it's there, it will help change your mindset a bit. And it doesn't mean you have to do it forever. And I think you also have to remember that not everybody gets the freedom. You know, it's like when celebrities are like, you should just quit your job and do what makes you happy. It's like, well, that would be great, but we have bills to pay. And if somebody wants to pay me $15 million a pop to pretend to be somebody else on TV, then I can have, you know, plenty of time to say no and tell people, oh, I don't do that. But that's just not how most of the world works. You know, we have to pay bills and, you know, send children to school and, you know, feed them. The
real world
costs money. And so sometimes you're going to have to do stuff that you don't love. And even a great job, I always say, when people are like, find something you love and you'll never work a day in your life. I think that is the dumbest quote I have ever heard. I'm sorry if it's ever been uttered on this podcast and I didn't see it. There are plenty of days that I'm like, oh my gosh, like, leave me alone. No, like, why am I getting, like, I don't want to deal with this email. I don't want to have to do this or that. But I love what I do. It's just that you're going to have little things that come up no matter what you're doing that are frustrating and, that make you want to retire early. But you still love what you do for the most part. And then it's like all the good makes up for those little things, right? I mean, if you were like really famous, somebody probably brings you the wrong colored M&Ms and it's a terrible day. So, but you get over it.
Right. Somebody takes an awkward picture of you when you weren't ready, or AI is something now.
Oh gosh,
you don't even know. And just
know.
because you're a celebrity, that's out there.
Right.
I'm glad for my anonymity, I think. Yeah,
I'm glad. I know. It'd be hard to be that famous.
Again, another great fact, because I feel the same way. Like, I love what I do, but there aren't times where there are either things I don't want to do or something comes up, or, there's some geopolitical conflict that makes the markets go crazy, right? You can still absolutely love what you do, yet not love every minute of it or be frustrated by something on that journey.
Yep. That's Adam and Eve's fault. They ruined it for all of us, so we're going to toil.
Yeah, I mean, and some toil is, I think, often, and maybe you can share how that affected your path and your success in your life, but I think through the toil, we learn more, we learn better, we gain the experience that you have to go through it.
Mm-hmm. And it helps you build confidence, and you get through tough things and you realize, wow, I made it through that. And then I would say, as rough as social media has made it, as I pointed out on some things, it's also really helpful on others, because I'm in a bunch of lawyer mom groups where sometimes people are sharing things and I'm like, wow, okay, my day was not that bad. Or you realize, like, everybody has, tough times. Everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's terrified that they, did something, they made a mistake that, is going to end the world. And, usually that is not the case. And you kind of learn, like, okay, now I know, like, don't do this next time. Or I know, like, definitely that was a warning sign, like, like what kind of a client not to take or something, right? You kind of have to learn the hard way sometimes, but sometimes there's people who have it way harder than you. And so you can be like, okay, I think I'm good.
Yeah, definitely have been there, done that, where, when you're early on in your career and you're developing business, you're like, sure, I'll take that on. Or you talk to somebody and they're like, oh yeah, no, I get it. I'm a good fit for you. And you find out later that they're not. Mm-hmm. And I think the truly successful, and I'm saying this to myself right now as much as to everybody else, that you find those clients that aren't a good fit, and yes, absolutely, you should let that go.
And it's okay to say no, right? It's terrifying when you are building a business, you feel like you have to say yes to everything because you're trying to, prove something to yourself, your employer, whatever, or make money, right? I mean, that's how you kind of make more money, is by getting new business. And you're afraid to say no, and it's okay if not everybody's a fit. It's not like a good or bad thing, right? Like, I don't click with everybody, right? And so if you brought 10 attorneys to me and I interviewed all of them, there's a good chance it's somebody who could be the quote unquote best one, the expert that I really need. I might be like, we don't really click. We don't mesh. And that's not a bad thing. You're not friends with everybody. So the same would hold true with people that you're employing to do really important work for you. And it works both ways, right? Because if that person could be bringing a lot of extra stress in your life that you don't need, then just say no.
And that's what I was going to say. The cost or the downside is that extra stress, potentially that extra time that they're pulling from you to try to keep making it work. And then that really closes off or takes you away from the clients that are a good fit, or from being open to new clients coming to you that are a good fit.
Yeah. It can definitely be time consuming. So, but I think that's just with experience and confidence, you become more comfortable being like, oh, I don't need to say yes to everything. And that's not even just work. It's just anything, right? Like volunteer things. I mean, board positions, being involved in things in the community, all great things. But sometimes when you become that person who is present, everybody thinks, oh, here's the person to call. Like they'll get this done. And sometimes you have to say, I just can't right now. And it's scary to do that. I think especially with jobs like ours, where being active in the community is important. People have to get to know you. Like relationships are one of the reasons how you build a business. And so you want to be visible and say yes to everything, but you just can't, especially when you have a family. I could work more, I could do more, but I like my family. And, you have this mindset, like enough, it's never going to be enough, right? Which you'd see that, especially on your side of things. There's always more money. You can always have more. You can always have this or that, or go stay in this notch nicer of the hotel. It will never stop. And so if you're not like content and don't have some kind of a sense of contentment with your life, you're going to just be chasing things forever, and you're going to miss out on important, experiences that you could be having.
So how do you get here to this mindset sort of? I mean, were you just always like that? Did you do certain things to build resilience and positivity and the right mindset, the confidence, the bravery, the courage, whatever everybody would use? Or is there something you do daily, or there are actions that you've taken to help you get there?
I would be lying if I didn't say I don't struggle with it ever. It's absolutely not true. I have moments where I feel insecure. I have moments where I feel like I'm not doing enough, where this person has this accolade and I don't, or this person, I'm not thinking of a person in particular, but just people in general, like, are more successful than me or something. I think there are a lot of things. I think actually having the experience in the money world and in this, what I do, just from a practical standpoint of actually saying like, okay, first of all, a lot of people don't have anywhere near as much as they act like they do. So I could feel a little bit better. And because everybody's kind of fighting the same battles, right? We all are. Mm-hmm. And so I'm also not the only one who feels this way ever. Faith for me is something that's a big thing, just having something that's outside of myself and having a sense of purpose that's more than just me. And, my being here, I try to remind myself like where I came from, and that, God is an important factor. I try to make that the most important factor. I'm not always very good at it, but that's helpful for me. And just reminding myself of it and trying to actually focus on things that are important, and just even reminding myself, like saying the things that I need to say, like trying to like memorize a Bible verse that reminds me of that. And that's not going to be for everybody, right? That's something that is for me, but, and trying not to listen to the noise. That's really hard, especially because I do so much social media for work. It's like I need to be there. And so just trying to remember that everybody's doing like the same thing. Everyone's trying to put their best foot forward. They're trying to show that they're smart and they're successful. And behind closed doors, there's lots of stuff going on, and there's life, and it's messy, and it's not perfect. And that's okay. And so reminding myself of that, so again, I'm not perfect at it. It's easy to talk the talk and be like, you'll never see me being like one of those people that's like, titles don't matter. I'm like, well, sure they do. They do, like, because that people see that, and we don't live in a perfect world where, people just look past all of that stuff and only just see how good you are because they see who you are. But that's not true. They see the title and then they're like, okay, well, if that's their title, they're probably doing a pretty good job at their job. It doesn't indicate your value, like your worth and your value do not come from how much money you make or your title. I have never in my life wanted to become friends with somebody based on that. I don't ask for a tax return. I'm usually the one that's like, can we split the check? You know what I mean? And like, I can afford to pick up the tab, but I'm like, but we might not all be in the same boat. And I never want somebody to feel pressure. And I remember being the couple, that goes out and they're like, let's just split it. And my husband and I are like, my gosh, we ate like a salad and we split a burger. Like our share is like $30, not 122, right? I remember those feelings and I try to be sensitive to that. But I think, it's just, I just try to pay attention, and I don't know. I started going down a path and I don't even remember where I started going, because that's what happens to you when you're in your mid 40s. You start talking about something and then you're like, what was the point of what I was saying? I know it was good, but I don't remember what it was.
No, you were giving advice on, and I think all that's important, right? Mindset, and how do you train yourself, practice letting go of things, being brave and courageous, not caring or over caring about what other people think. And as you were talking, the titles are important. It's not everything. So just like your law degree, my certifications, your CFP, they're all important. They're not everything, but they are important.
Right. They matter. I mean, it impacts the trajectory of your career. But yes, I sort of remember the point I was making. But like, I don't pick my friends and I don't pick people based on that kind of stuff, right? That's just not how it works. You hang out with people that you have a good connection with, and I wouldn't want to hang out with somebody anyway who only wanted to hang out with me because they thought I could do something for them, or because I made enough money or I had the right clothes. And don't get me wrong, I like clothes. I mean, I like blazers and I like that stuff. But that literally does not factor in to anything when I think about the people I want to spend my time with. It's not how I value people. And so if somebody is doing that, I don't know why you'd want to be around them anyway. I know that sounds like something your mom would say, like when you were in elementary school, but it's true. Like, I don't want to be around somebody who doesn't care about what I think, or something deeper than just what's on the surface.
Well, isn't that important both personally and in business, whether you're networking, whether you're growing a team, you're bringing on business, that it's more than what can you do for me? What can I get from you? It really is. The long-term successful people are about the relationships, and how can I help? How can you help? How can we help others? I think personally it's great. It really should expand into everything what we do.
Yes, and people sense it. I mean, right there, I 100% know when I am at a cocktail party, I'm at some event, and I meet someone and I'm talking to them, and they are looking at me just like I am a prospect and I'm another potential client or something, or what can I do for them? You can sense that a mile away. And it's so off-putting. And it's the whole like scanning the room and like, oh, is there somebody better that I can be talking to? I mean, it's like, I'm right here. I see you. Like, I know it's not just your ADD. I know like you are looking to see if there's somebody better that you can move on to. And that's so obvious. And I think also trying to shift to how can I be helpful to you is really helpful. I kind of laugh sometimes that I feel like I missed my calling as being a professional networker for other people. I feel like I walk away from stuff all the time and I'm like, well, I think I just got that person a job, or I got that person some business, or like my parents, in order for their party rental company, I was like, I didn't get anything out of it, but I think when you have a mindset where you do want to be helpful to people and you think about like, okay, what can I do to help you? People appreciate that. Maybe you don't get anything out of it. Maybe you do. You know what I mean? Like I'm not like calculating the ROI on like, well, I connected you to this person, so when am I getting something back? I mean, probably inevitably you do, something does, but I don't think in my life it's been really like this happens and then this happens, this happens and this happens. I feel like I go like a really long time, and it's like something I didn't even think about will come back and be like, oh, I remember you from da da da, or this person said this. And I'm like, oh, really? I'm like, I don't even think I knew that person, So.
Yeah, it's not that direct cause and effect, like immediate, like immediate gratification or that immediate response. Oftentimes it's 2 years later. And so connected because of you way back when, and something happened, and it's all because you genuinely were interested in getting to know the other person and wanting to help, or at least getting enough information so that if some point you can help, you have that information.
Yeah, networking is important, and getting to know people is important. So,
what you said earlier, I always am interested in how people get where they get. And you mentioned, like, I don't even know why I wanted to be an attorney. Maybe somebody just told me that I should be an attorney. So it sounds like you were pretty keen early on to be an attorney.
I know I went to some career day at school and visited a law firm when I was probably in middle school. I remember doing that. And I think I was like, I'm going to be a corporate attorney. I don't even think I knew what that meant. I'm sure I didn't. I think I've always been a talkative person. I was always the kid upstairs talking to the adults, at a party. I was interested in what was going on in the world. And I think probably those traits were things that lent themselves to people thinking, oh, you should be an attorney, because I was also talkative and passionate. And I always say advocate. I don't like saying like I argued a lot. I didn't get in trouble. I was a rule follower and stuff. So I think maybe more of an advocate, and passionate is probably better than argumentative. I can be argumentative. I think I'm pretty decent at it. If I really believe in something and I know I'm right, you better watch out. I'm perfectly willing to be like, I don't know anything about that. That's interesting. But if I know about it, I will. I'm like, you're done. I'm like, you're not leaving here without, saying mercy and, bowing to my knowledge. But I think that those were just things that I enjoyed. But I also love teaching, right? So that's a really big thing of what I do. I think a lot of the social media for me is educating people and trying to take things that are really complex and making them understandable for people, because the money thing and estate planning and all that is vital, right? We're talking about the thing that puts the roof over your head, right, that not enough people take seriously enough. And it can be overwhelming because it's not your day job. And I know I sit there, my son is super into roller coasters and he wants to be an engineer. And he talks about like, I don't even understand what he's talking about. Okay. I mean, he's like into like the track types and inversion and all this stuff, and gave me homework while he was at camp to like answer questions about roller coasters for him in the letters I sent, because my letters are apparently not quite robust enough, because I don't have a lot of exciting things going on during the day, except like I'm at work, and I read these words on a screen and I see things and I'm like, this is a different language. And that is how money and estate planning and taxes are for other people. And so I want people to understand that it's okay to not understand it, but we as professionals can do a much better job of communicating, especially to the spouse that's maybe not as involved, and that's always very obvious, right, when that's going on. I love teaching and I love educating. So I love speaking and doing that stuff too. So it's not just the actual practice of law. I like all the stuff that comes along with it that I get to do.
Yeah, and I certainly appreciate that and love bringing that into what I do. And I think it does set you apart. When I was talking to somebody the other day, I want to make sure I'm not speaking at someone. I want to speak with them, or, again, I don't expect them to understand what I do 24/7. Yet if it's less of across from the table talking versus on the side with each other going through it, there's just a fulfilling, inner excitement from that.
Mm-hmm. And seeing someone understand it, even when they're like, I'm not going to remember this the next time we talk, but I understand it now. That's why we do the diagrams. And I'm like, you don't need to understand like all of the mechanics of this, but you need to understand like the basics, and this flows from here and this flows to here, and means this is protected, this means this is exposed. And I think professionals, financial professionals, legal professionals, you get into all this like acronym blah, and it's like, oh my gosh, just stop, just use real words,
make it relatable.
Yeah. I can't remember code sections. That's like one of those things, my brain, I'm like, I know the code, but like the people who are just spewing out the tax code, I'm like, oh my gosh, like I could be writing about something on literally 4 numbers all day long, and the next morning I'm like, shoot, what were those 4 numbers of the code that I was working on? Like, I remember I can regurgitate like the whole text and everything about it, but I can't remember like the 4 numbers, I'm like, that's not how people relate. I mean, it's a very small group of people that talk like that and speak that language. But it's not relatable.
Well, estate planning, I mean, I know what estate planning is. I know how valuable it is, but maybe not everybody out there does who's listening. I think 2 things. 1, explaining really what does estate planning involve, but 2, there's a lot of people that we come across, I'm sure you do. Oh, that's for when I die. Mm-hmm. I don't need that yet. I'm young. I'll see you when I'm just going to say 50, but I'm getting close to that, 60, 70. And that's just not true. It's just not true.
It's not true. And ask any widow or widower of somebody who is in their 40s or 50s, anybody who is incapacitated. I think people don't think about that. They don't think about the fact that you could be, in an accident and not able to speak for yourself. And I think they also don't understand that the state of Missouri, or your state that you reside in, has created an estate plan for you, and you might be very surprised to know what that is. Like that the spouse doesn't just get everything. In Missouri, if you just have a bunch of accounts in your own name with no beneficiary on it, I said that really weirdly, with no beneficiary on it, the spouse gets the first $20,000, and then they split 50-50 with the kids. It's not all going to the spouse. And then the kids are under 18, it's going to go into conservatorship. And I always bring up, it's getting a little cliche, but the Britney Spears thing, right? Even though she was alive and it was for incapacitation of a different kind, when you are under the age of 18, you can't inherit money. You don't have capacity as an adult. So it's going to go into the court system, and you're going to be hiring me to like file accountings and do all this stuff. And then when the kids turn 18, they get the money outright. I don't know about you, but if every young couple has as much term life insurance as they should, then that's a lot of money for your kid to get when they turn 18. And they're probably not going to want to go to school or, do something responsible. And so you're saying who you want to handle the things if you're alive and you can't speak for yourself, whether it's a medical decision or a financial thing. Like somebody needs to contract for you, right? Like somebody needs to sign that thing to admit you to the hospital. Or somebody needs to call and handle like paying your electric bill, right? They don't just do that like because you're like, I'm the kid or I'm the spouse. Like that does not just give you the right to handle things. And then there's stuff that has to be done when you die. People really do not realize that. Like car titles, like you're dealing with a house that there could be a mortgage on it, and you have expenses. It costs money to die. It's not free to die. And it's a lot. And when you're not organized, it is a nightmare. Like I'm actually getting pickier about the post-death administration that I'm taking because it's not worth the money to me, some of it. Because when stuff is not planned in advance, it's really hard. It's hard on families. It's hard on us. We don't even always get guaranteed we're going to get paid for the amount of work that we do when planning hasn't been done properly, because there's like statutory rates and things like, and you could have a judge that's like, that's too much. We're not going to let you, make that much. And sometimes you might be able to. So it's a lot of paperwork, and it's stressful, and people are not at their best, obviously. And I think when people are like, it'll be my family's problem, I don't care, I'm dead. I cannot stand that. I'm like, if you hate your family, okay. But like, if you love your family even a little bit, you would try to reduce the amount of stress that they have. And I'm not interested in working with somebody who's like, I don't really care what happens after I die. I mean, yes, there's an element of it, like, don't get so into the weeds that you're spending a fortune on contingencies and things that are probably never going to happen. And because yes, if they do, you're going to die and you're not going to even know. But it's like, but at a minimum, things are going to be in good shape and your family's going to be taken care of and stuff. And so like, that's about the only time I'm ever like, you're never going to know, like, if this happened. It's like, let's not spend 20 grand like on this contingency that's never going to happen. And on the like 1% chance that it does, it's probably less than that. Like, you really won't know, but at least it won't be a mess, you know?
Yeah, it's, I see it. And when we talk to people, it's like, it's already an emotional time when somebody passes away. Mm-hmm. So you have this flood of feelings and relationships, and just, you don't know what it's going to be like till you go through somebody passing away. And then to add on that, the layer of, well, what assets do they have? Where are they? How are they titled? Like that, it's a challenging process in and of itself to then marry it with, you know, the emotions of someone passing and it not being taken care of and being a mess. And then it's more costly, a lot more costly to try to figure it out after the fact.
It is. And I'm a really big advocate of people using an advisor. I think that's probably one of the things of me having been on that side of it. I'm like, no, trust me, you do not want to be the one calling that 1-800 number. You want the advisor to be using their own personal number that gets you to that custodian where stuff's going to get done and all you have to do is sign the documents. It is so complicated dealing with back office stuff when you do not have an advisor helping you. And so that is one of the things that I'm always like with my clients when they come, if they don't have one, I'm like, I'm going to give you some names. At least talk to somebody or promise me that when one of you who is not as involved, if the involved person handling everything dies first, this is going to be stressful. And so then it's like trying to find the stuff, trying to get paperwork, and then we have to get more involved with that, right? And so then we're charging, $415 to $600 an hour to be doing things that somebody you're already paying, right? You're already paying your advisor. They can help you with like to fund your estate plan, and they can help with a lot of the post-death. They can be a real ally and help reduce my bill. It's still not going to be cheap when you die. I mean, there's like this myth that you do it. It's like, oh, it's so cheap. No, I mean, it costs money to die. Like if you do your planning or you don't, it's just one way. It's a complete disaster and a mess and a lot more stressful and potentially a lot more expensive. But the other way, it's a lot cleaner. And if you have a lot of money, it costs money to die, right? Like I'm having to do estate tax returns and doing things like it's not like having money costs money, right? But an estate tax bill is way worse than whatever my bill is going to be. So I think when you have a team in place, it's just like the tax person, and sometimes it's like we are the tax people for some things too. So it sort of depends. And you have that advisor. It makes everything go so much better. Like I love it when I can be like, here you go, like. And then the advisor can send me, I've been asking, send me an annual snapshot net worth statement, because I'm not working with some people all the time. Like some clients, it's like constant, but some it's like, okay, 5 years we'll see you. Or if something big happens, if there's a big law change or family circumstance change. So I don't know what's going on. And then it takes me a lot to get caught up, which costs money. And I'm not going to bill, like if I get that annual net worth statement from you, just to be like, look at it for 2 seconds and be like, okay, like looks like everything's kind of on track to where I thought it would be. It's a lot harder when you get all this new information and then you have to go back to the drawing board and figure out everything that's been going on for the last 5 or 10 years when there's been a long time, in between meetings.
Right. And I mean, a good estate plan in general, for those who may not know, right? Wills, healthcare powers of attorney, which who makes those decisions if you're incapacitated, financial powers of attorney, who pays the bills if you're incapacitated, potentially trusts if you own vehicles or a house or different assets, whether it's business assets, second house, land, etc. It's making sure that, again, back to that, what are your wishes while you're alive and after death? And is every asset and potential decision maker accounted for in those documents? Especially if you have young kids, because in the will, then you're naming guardians and so forth too. So it's important when the kids are young. It's important as to keep them updated as laws and life changes. And again, it's not just post-death things we're talking about here. It's pre-death where someone may have to step in and help out.
Right. And it forces you to pay attention to things that are going on in your family too, right? You're going to pay a little more attention at Thanksgiving dinner when that like aunt or uncle or the siblings like out of control, and you're like, whoa, you definitely do not want that person, making decisions. Or, if you have children with special needs, that's a huge one. Oh my gosh. That's where we get into problems where you really need to have collaboration with advisors and the estate planning attorneys, because having your beneficiaries, like naming a child outright, an adult child even who has special needs, you could be really screwing up, benefits that they're receiving. And so paying attention to what's going on with your family, and also the need to be honest about that. It's first off, it's like whatever you have to share, we have heard way worse, right? Like there's probably nothing that you can say that would surprise us, and we're not allowed to tell anybody, right? Like, I can't tell anybody, so your secret's safe with me. But that helps us make sure we have a good plan in place. And when we end up discovering things down the road, it's like, you didn't tell me about this. Like, well, I didn't think it was relevant. Well, let me decide what's relevant, right? Because I definitely needed to know about that. And so when we get that questionnaire, need to know it all, right? And it'll help us create a better plan. It's going to be more cost efficient for you if we have all the information, and we can help protect your family better when we know what we're working with.
A lot of times we like to think about stories, and I know we can't share specifics and it's confidential, but I imagine there are times where you come in and you see something or you do something and you realize you've made a huge impact, or you've, for the lack of better words, really changed lives doing it. Are there any instances in general that stick out to you that say, man, that was, in this instance, again, made it all worth it. I love what I do.
I think there's the practical ones, like, hi, you live in Illinois and you only get like $4 million each before you've got a state estate tax problem. It's not like the federal where you've got this $15 million per person and you have no planning in place, and let's get this taken care of. And the person this was actually when I was on the advising side, and I had a person die, and it was like, we're talking hundreds of thousands of dollars of tax savings because they did something. So I think sometimes there's that practical matter when you're dealing with numbers. It's very easy to show that. The other thing I would say is seeing somebody who maybe wasn't the one calling the shots and now is in the driver's seat, understanding things and realizing, maybe that's not the way I would have really wanted to do things if I'd really understood what was going on. And my spouse always handled all this stuff, and I think seeing them feel good about the way things are going to happen after they die, I cannot explain how good that feeling is. It's just, there is a lot of anxiety around that, especially when people get older and you have a surviving spouse. There can be a lot of anxiety about making sure things are the way that they want them. And I love that feeling of somebody feeling like, okay, whew, you know, I can breathe. And I know that if something happens to me, like the money is going to go the way that I want it to. And I can feel good about that. So, and then they understand it, right? Maybe for a month they understand it, right? And I got to go back to explain how all these like irrevocable trusts work and all that stuff. But I think there is, I know you're not supposed to use that like peace of mind phrase in the world because it's like a guarantee, but there is a feeling that somebody has where they can feel like, oh, okay, I feel okay about this, right? It's not perfect, but I feel like I'm not leaving my family with a problem.
And I would imagine, at least I see it in what I do and feel and who I work with, that once they can get there, that sort of peace of mind, that confidence, again, they may not be able to repeat the whole plan in 2 months, yet they know there's somebody that's got their back. They know that there's a partner who's, you know, next time you get together, you're okay to, you know, go through the whole thing again and explain it all. And if something changes, you're going to be right on top of it. And you're there as that partner, kind of confidant versus just another attorney or advisor that I have. And talk about going back to the old, in my Rolodex.
Right. Yeah, in your Rolodex. Yeah, I think the ability to say, listen, because we get that call, you or I, we get that call or that email first when somebody's died. To be able to say, okay, you don't have to do anything today, right? Just grieve, let me know what I can do, you know, when the funeral is. You don't need to worry about this because we did everything already, and this can wait until Monday, or this can wait a week. I think that is a feeling that they really, really appreciate, because there is that moment of panic that sets in, that you're supposed to do all of these things, even when you've told them over and over again that they don't need to. But when you can tell them in that moment, I've got you, you know, well, you're going to be okay. We're going to get through this. I think just hearing those words is huge. At least it feels like it is, you know, for them. So.
Yeah, I agree. I see that too. In a big moment, whatever it might be, oftentimes it's somebody passing away, and it's just, okay, take some time, breathe. We'll get working on our end. We've got you. Reach out for anything, and we'll work through this together. And hopefully you have a great estate planning attorney, and we'll be able to pair up with them and do a good job.
Yeah. And sometimes it's, if they didn't have a financial person, that's when we're trying to find somebody, right, for the surviving spouse. And you know, a lot of times, right, statistically speaking, that it's like 8 out of 10 women will outlive their male spouses. And I mean, that was a statistic at one time. I know it's real because it was in a publication, but well,
it's better than saying it was on the internet.
Yeah, I mean, it was on the internet, but it was like a reputable company that did the stuff. And I think that because that happens, not planning for that is really, it's not a good idea. I mean, I think I think we're getting better, but historically, right, this was the man's domain. Like, the men took care of that. And I still see that a lot. I even see it with younger women. I mean, I think that the whole like division of labor stuff comes up, but I really try to say, like, listen, you don't have to be like equally interested in it. And by the way, just because he's a man does not mean he understands it more. Like, I have had to explain marginal tax rates to just as many men as I had to women. Like, if this is not your day job, like, you are not just born with the knowledge of like, oh, how do taxes work, right? So it's still a little bit of a struggle, right? I think we can all still do better. Advisors can still do better, and attorneys, of making sure that the conversation. I just wrote an article co-authored an article. It was about irrevocable trust being treated basically as marital property for purposes of equitable division in a divorce, where basically one of the big problems was the fact that all this stuff had been done, and the wife was like, not really included. She's like, I'd be on the ski lift, and they would mention something about this, and like she's just signing away, and it was a really big problem. And I think the involved spouse has a responsibility to make sure the one who's not as involved or not as interested is attending the meetings and having like check-ins and has a basic understanding. And you figure out how to make it so that there is emotional and mental capacity to take on this extra stuff, because we are literally talking about the thing that keeps the roof over your head. And the panic, and it happens with divorce too, right? You have a lot of times people get a divorce and they're like, well, I don't know where anything is. And I'm like, I'm sorry, like you should. I mean, like, because if you can't, that's financial abuse, right? Like if you're in a marriage where you cannot ask questions about your money and someone's like, the only answer is here, let me show you, let's go over this together. If that's not the response that you're getting, that's an abusive relationship, and that is something else that needs to be dealt with, right? But there are way more situations going on that are not financial abuse, where someone's not interested, or they're not taking initiative, or the spouse that's more involved is not pulling their spouse in, and you got to do it. Like, it's not negotiable.
It's foundational to everything and everyone, whatever your profession is, whatever you love doing or don't do. I mean, finance, money, understanding where your assets are, that they're properly, what you do, titled, and everything's taken care of and buttoned up.
Yep.
It affects all of us.
It
doesn't matter who you are. Like I said, you're not insulated from it.
Nope.
And so to not participate at some level, and I get it, I have 3 teenagers. Sometimes I look back and I think, I don't know how we did what we did. Yet that's something that's so important. Yeah. You have to participate.
I always tell people around tax time, that is a great time to get to know things, because remember, you're signing a tax return. You're telling the government, I see everything that's in here and I attest that it is accurate. That's a great place, because any place that you have income is being reported on that. Like, you can see that you have money coming from Schwab, Fidelity, whatever, the custodians and all those places, and the different sources of income. And if stuff's not being reported on there that you have, like, that's another problem, right? Because maybe you're married to somebody who commits tax fraud. I don't know. But that is a great place to look through and get a sense of, okay, this is where I have money coming from. Right? It's in all these places. And so everybody should be doing that, not just signing when the tax return pops up. And I think that's a good place to start, and to make sure you're going to the meetings, and that advisors and lawyers aren't doing things without making sure the other spouse, knows what's going on. And I'm not going to take a client who's like, yes, I may talk to one person a little bit more than the other. That's inevitable. But when people are signing things, like, you're both going to understand what's going on and what's being signed. We're going over that diagram together. We're explaining things. And you're going to know. I'm not going to just do like unilateral planning, with one spouse. Like, that just doesn't work.
And I think we can both say this, right? Like, you have the right to ask questions. You have the right to understand. You have the right to pause things and say, whoa, back up. Like, this is your life, your estate plan, your financial plan, all of that. Like, stop it. Ask questions. There's no dumb question. I can't go do what my clients do 24/7.
Right.
So I would be asking them questions, and we would expect the same thing. Yeah. So there's no dumb question. You should feel comfortable asking questions, and for heaven's sake, do it.
Yeah. And your spouse might not even know what the answer is either, right? They're just afraid to ask the question. So it's totally okay. I mean, I learn new things every day. And there are times that I'm like, I have to read something 30 times. And I'm like, what? I mean, like, why would somebody whose day job is being like a teacher or even a doctor or an engineer, right? An engineer, right? They're definitely reading everything. Like, none of the stuff that you're doing, like, I don't know how to be a nurse. I don't know how to be teach, 7th grade Spanish. So, like, if you wouldn't expect me to know that stuff, like, why would you know what I'm doing, right? It doesn't matter how much education you have. Like, you could literally be like, the chief neurosurgeon of like whatever and have 10 years more of education than I have and not know anything about tax at all. So, I think it's good to ask questions.
Yeah, good. Do it, participate, own it, and hopefully you never run into a surprise or an issue emergency where you have to step in and take over, but there's going to be something. So get prepared.
Someone's going to die.
Right.
We all do.
Death, taxes, you change. Those are life's guarantees, right?
Yep.
Life's inevitables.
Yep. Yeah. And I think it's easy for us. Like, it's like, yeah, we're all going to die. I mean, it's not that hard it doesn't bother me, but I do understand. I do sympathize with the fact that it can be a little hard to think about that stuff for people. And when you have to think about like who's going to take care of your children and who's going to do things and who's going to pull that plug, and it's not easy, right? It's not an easy decision. So it's easy to sit on the other side and be like, oh my gosh, this is not that hard. Make a decision, right? But I mean, I get it. It's a big decision. I think people procrastinate because of it, and people sometimes they don't want to spend the money, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you're spending a fortune on the dumbest stuff. Like, you are. Don't tell me you're not spending any money, because I know you are. And I know we get all this like the whole like latte thing, and people are like, it's not. People are like, it's about women. I was like, no. I was like, it's not. When I go into Starbucks, I see just as many men with fancy frothy drinks as I do women, and it's not about the coffee, okay? It's about like not paying attention to the fact that we spend money on these little things that seem small that they add up, and that's just a good example that people use. You can have it be video games, you can have it be tools, you can have it be like whatever. It doesn't mean don't have fun in your life and don't enjoy it. Like, you can, but you need to be deliberate and you need to plan. And I know how easy it is to use that little app and like, $28 here, $7 there. And before you know it, you could have had some money saved up for a rainy day. You could have paid to have your estate planning done. Even with people don't want to spend the money on doing their own financial planning. Well, even the do-it-yourself platforms have done the studies that show the return on investment is positive, like for people, because it's not just about picking an index fund, right? It's like, maybe you shouldn't pay off that 2.75% mortgage right now, or, learning how to be deliberate about the things that you do and asset location. Like, that was a great investment there, but you shouldn't have put it in a taxable account. It should have been in your IRA, like, because you're paying unnecessary taxes, every time. Those are true stories where that kind of stuff has happened, where it's like, oh, like, who told you to do that? So I think it's being deliberate and paying attention to like what you spend. You would be surprised at the money that you could find if you live within your means and you're responsible, and it's worth it to do it, because it is going to be a bigger problem on the back end, especially when you're younger and you've done nothing. It will absolutely be more expensive having to clean everything up.
And it's one of those where you're like, kind of like house insurance or car insurance. You hope you never have to use it. I would imagine that's the problem, right? Like you will inevitably, everybody dies. But, we hope you don't have to use it until that end day when you just pass away in your sleep and it's done.
Yep.
Yet, just like we protect our home and our car, and this really is a protection that, should that catastrophe happen, we're happy we have that in place.
Absolutely. Yeah. I hope it doesn't happen to you in the short term. I hope we get to check back in a few times and do some updates before that happens. But yeah, you're going to use them, Have you ever gotten the call? Well, I have, and I know this, so it's kind of a loaded question, but I've already done all my estate planning years ago. I just want a quick change. Can you do that? Sure. And my answer is, I will give you a recommendation of what I think you need to do. And if you do not want to take my recommendation, you will find somebody else. That's one of the things when people call me and they think they know what they need or something. And also this is like where the stay in your lane thing comes up too, because sometimes I will get advisors who are like, they need this. I'm like, do they need this? I don't know. I was very careful to stay in my lane, to just be like, hey, let's talk to the attorney and be like, hey, what do you think? Because a lot of times, right, there are things that you don't know, like on either side, right?
Or if you're not in those conversations, right? If you're having a separate conversation, they're having a separate conversation with you, you don't know, there's no connection there.
And there could be things that are outdated in documents that you don't understand. Like we put in these things that are becoming more popular, or it's called a contingent general power of appointment, which like basically, in the old days, you had to choose between planning for income tax and planning for estate tax, right? And it was like, ugh, they both stink, but capital gains tax is not as bad as estate tax. And so in order to save estate tax, people lost out on a cost basis adjustment. It's not a step up in cost basis unless the market's up. It's a basis adjustment, right? Because it could go down. So the cost that you paid for your stock, right? Because I know not everybody listening is going to be a person. If I paid $100 for Apple stock and it's worth $200 today, if I were to sell it, right, I have to pay taxes on that $100 gain. But if I die and it's worth $200, then my cost goes up to $200. And so technically speaking, if I could sell it that same day, which you can't sell it the same day, it's a little bit of a delay because we got to get a new tax ID and do all this stuff. Ideally, there's no gains. And for a lot of the estate tax planning we did, that stock was passed on to next generations in trust, where it did not get that basis adjustment because it was avoiding estate tax. And so there's a lot of documents that don't have this thing in it that says, hey, if I could include some of that money in my estate and not have an estate tax be due, do it. And then we ideally get this income tax basis adjustment. And so we're even like, it's called decanting, but we're like amending irrevocable trusts and things that have been around for a while to try to make sure that they're more tax efficient for the next generation, because you can pass down more than $600,000 without an estate tax. And so there are so many things that are like missing in documents, and now every document's out of date. I'm telling you this right now, because we have all just gotten our Secure Act language for retirement benefits updated. So like 2020 was like when the law changed, took like 4 years for us to figure out what was going on and get the regulations to come out. And then even after the regulations came out in 2024, it still took us more than a year of like arguing as lawyers, like to be like, what does this mean? I don't know. What are you doing? What are you doing? Like we've all just kind of gotten our boilerplate language updated in the last several months to account for this huge law change with retirement benefits. So like if you've got a lot of retirement benefits, you are 100%, your documents are out of date, most likely. And so I think people don't understand how many little things are in those pages you just don't want to read. Like page 37 does have something really important on it, and it's there for a reason. And so like if you call me, you're going to pay me, I'm going to do a review. And if you have like a power of attorney document that's like fine and you just did it like a year ago and it has all like the basic elements, I'll tell you like, you're fine. But I'm going to say like, if I'm going to have my name on this, it's going to be done correctly. And if you think you know better than I do, then you can go do something that's not going to be right and in your best interest without my assistance. I said a little nicer than that, but...
Right, because at the end of the day, your name's on it. Mm-hmm. You're liable for what ends up happening, and you don't want to take somebody else's work and sort of amend it, rubber stamp it, et cetera.
Yeah, there's some people whose work that I know that I'm like, oh yeah, this is good. I'm like, thank you for leaving them and coming to me. I feel so honored, but it's like, I know that the work was good. And it's not always personal why they leave. Sometimes, kids want a different person, or somebody's retiring and they want somebody, that's, in their age group or something. But but then there's some documents that I get that I'm like, this was done on a typewriter by somebody who decided to dabble in something they shouldn't have. And it's really bad.
And that's a really great point. When we talk to our clients, we say, okay, so you say you have somebody, somebody, is this person, such and such attorney, and they're going to help you with the estate plan, or are they an estate planning attorney? Because we want somebody who lives and works in that field, that part of the legal field, to be drafting your documents. This is not something that we want to just play in the sandbox for a little bit and come back out.
This is not a side hustle. And I'm in a lot of lawyer groups where somebody will post like, is there a CLE, like a continuing legal education I can do? I'm thinking of taking on estate planning. And I'm like, stop. That's not how this works. Like, the best thing you can do is go find an expert in the field and go work with them and learn from them. Are there a couple of like super, super, super basic things you might be able to do and figure out? Yeah. But what you don't understand is how this touches everything else. And you don't know what you don't know. And this practice area is actually one of the harder ones that people get sued way more in it. Way more can go wrong because you can just blow things up with taxes and like so many problems. It's not like this isn't like I can help you with that traffic ticket. It's like a full time. I mean, like we do like a little bit of business stuff that overlaps a lot with the estate planning. Like, I'm not your M&A girl, right? Like, if it's, you got a rental property and you got something, we got to do the LLC, like the side business, like that kind of stuff. Yes. And like, we do some nonprofit stuff, but nonprofit stuff actually overlaps a lot with what we do too. But like, we're very focused in our lane and kind of being in this area. So it's like, if you call me and you need, we don't even do like international stuff, right? Because the international stuff is a totally serious practice area of its own, right? And I don't do elder law. Like, I don't do Medicaid planning. I will get you a referral for that because Medicaid specialists, like that's not like there's an estate planning component to it, but it's a very specific thing. So this is not an area where you want a dabbler or someone who just helped you out, because it's not going to be good.
Well, I think that's a good entry point to people who you work with, how people kind of engage with you. I'll say a little bit, I should let you talk about it all, but like, they could already have estate documents or not. It could be a number of things. Like, so I should shut up and let you explain.
Well, I've been very talkative this whole time, so.
Well, that's the point.
You're allowed to say a sentence. No, I actually see people all different phases, right? I have the young people who are just starting out. Sometimes I do like premarital agreements. I don't, like, that's not like my thing, but having family law experience and estate planning, there's such an overlap. Like, I will do them. But it's not like I'm like, yay, give all these to me. Like, I'll do the happy ones. I don't want to fight with people. I don't want to be like, oh, these people should not be getting married. Like, that's not the kind of premarital stuff I want to do. I will have people who are just starting out and they're like, and then I've got people who are like our age and they're like, it's time to be a grown up. And I'm like, oh, it's time to be a grown up now, right? And they're like, yeah. And I have people who are in their 60s and 70s who've never done it. And they're starting to think about the fact that the end of time may be approaching faster than they'd like, or something happens, or somebody dies, or they're cleaning up in a mess because like their sibling died. And they're like, oh my gosh, this was so horrible. It was not organized and I need to do it. So I really see people all different phases that are coming. It's ideal to come when you're, young and just kind of starting out and, getting your kids to get those powers of attorney when they're 18. Because, hey, guess what? They're 18. And if they go have a mental health crisis when they're at a school, like, they're not necessarily going to talk to you. Like, you're going to go to court and get a guardianship so that you can get, find out what's going on with your child, right? So I see all different types of people. I just want to see people. I just want them to go to people. It's not even about coming to me. Like, just go to somebody who's good. Just get it done. Stop messing around. This is serious stuff. So
yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, it's not a great fun topic always, but get it done, and it's that much easier to stay on top of it in the future, and you can prevent so much when the time comes, because it will. You can prevent so much heartache and costs and frustrations and mess.
And we take credit cards, so you can get points.
Oh,
so to bump yourself up to that premium economy on that trip that your financial advisor is telling you, guess what? You can afford to take that trip. I feel like you did your estate planning and you got some points, so you can bump up. It's not enough to bump up, really, but now nobody's going to call me if they're like, how many points do I get? Not that many, but you can use a credit card and you can get some.
and so it's fun, definitely. Well, I recommend following you or connecting with you on LinkedIn because there's a lot of, as we talked earlier, great content on many, many different things. And it doesn't have to be an overly complicated concept. Relating it to what we do in everyday life, what we see in everyday life. And if you want to learn and have some fun, then follow on LinkedIn, the law firm's website. I'm sure they can connect with you there. So I guess maybe walking through what's it like when somebody reaches out, first starts working with you, and where are all the places that they can find you?
So I'm definitely Googleable. I'm like the only Jennifer Belmont Jennings. So if you Google me, you will find me. And definitely LinkedIn. I am on Instagram, but I am so not cool over there. I have I'll get 2 likes I'll try to do something similar, but it's a totally different game. And I don't have time to become like the Canva queen and I need at least a minute to make any video, and you get 8 seconds, right, before somebody's like, I'm done. But I am over there, and that's all on our website. I think I have all my handles and stuff. But LinkedIn is where I really like to do stuff. And so what happens is, though, our process is you reach out, and then we have to run a conflict check because there's a conflict of interest check. And I don't know if this is a choice of a lawyer is an important decision and should not be based solely on advertisements. I'm not really advertising. I'm just explaining my thing. But in case somebody from the bar is watching this, this is not an advertisement. This is an important decision, or it is an advertisement. I don't know. I'm not really. But so we run a conflict of interest check. There's not a ton of conflicts that usually come up with what I do because it's not a very adversarial thing. Every now and then we have had 1 or 2 if that's come up and it's no, we can't take that, but we got to make sure that we're not representing somebody like your ex, right? That would be a conflict of interest. And so once that happens, some lawyers they won't do any kind of intro meeting. It's kind of nope, if you want to work with me, here's an engagement letter. I'll still do a 15-minute intro call because I think it's a good idea I want to make sure that we're a fit, and I kind of explain the process. And so after we have that intro call, we'll send an electronic questionnaire and get a little bit of information. And then when I have that information, I want to do flat fees. I'm trying, but it's very hard because I just kind of take the hit on almost all of them because it's I don't always get the information I need, and they end up becoming much more complex. And so I do tend to give an estimate, and I'm pretty good about estimating. And so I'll send an engagement letter and be I think, this should cost about this. If it looks like something is going to be, because you didn't tell me something and all of a sudden I got to do something else, I'll tell you. And then, we do the drafts, and then we send drafts with a diagram and a summary memo explaining how it all works. You got to sign the engagement letter first. And then they'll come in for a signing, and we can kind of set up if we meet. Sometimes people's stuff is so straightforward, they fill it out on the questionnaire. I don't need a super long meeting afterwards. We can just kind of email or have a quick kind of call and just clarify some things. Sometimes it's more complex, and we need to have a solid, really a longer, more detailed planning meeting because they're not sure about how to do stuff and they want to go over things. But then, when we're in our signing meeting, I'm going to go over the diagram with you. I'm going to explain things. We're going to help. We have funding instructions after the fact that I'll give your advisor. And then that's where the advisor can really save you money because I'm not going to charge to be send you a copy of the funding instructions and hey, here you go. But sometimes there's a lot more work that needs to be done. And so that could end up being, heck, you want to come in and sit with me and I'll sit with you and we'll log into all your stuff. I'll do it. I don't think you're going to like that bill, but I'll do it. But then we'll send the funding instructions. Then we've got a binder that we'll give you. And then, that's where the advisor also comes in handy. It's I think every year to remind them these are your beneficiaries. These are the things that you did. And I can't force you to prove it to me, right? I did have a client once who for years it was yeah, my bank account's in my trust. Well, guess what? It wasn't. What was I supposed to do? Be you lie. Show me and show me the proof. I can, if you want me to be your parent, I can do that. But having that help and the check-in, and then telling your advisor I have this new stuff because, I might not be talking to the person, but you see, oh, like you opened up another account at this bank. Is it in your trust? Like, did you put a TOD or a POD on it? You can kind of keep that going. And then when I get that annual like net worth statement with how the registrations are, I'm like, okay, good. Someone's on top of this. And then we check in. If like, I always say big life events, do a check-in. Doesn't mean we have to do something. If you hear rumblings of like a huge law change, like if you see me on LinkedIn being like, like, oh my gosh, they just did something crazy. Good time to be like, hey, do I need to do something? Or every 5 years. Does not mean we have to like update your trust. Your power of attorney and healthcare directive, when you get to a certain point, those are the ones I'm going to say, don't let those go 5 years. Not because they're not valid, but because those are the ones that banks, investment places, it's like you're dealing with somebody who has no experience, who's like a teller, right? Who's like they don't get any training. Like having to tell you, oh, this isn't good. And then I got to write a letter, and then you're going to pay me $1,000 to argue with them. And then I'm right. And then they have to do what I say, where it's like spewing out like a new power of attorney and healthcare directive, as long as you don't have like weird customized stuff, it's not very expensive. And those are the ones that they're most likely to get pushback on. A trust, like we're not going to, the need to do huge updates on those, it's not that frequent. We might make like some amendments, like little ones. And then at some point it's like, okay, let's just restate the whole thing. So you have like one document that you're working from, but that's not usually going to be with the frequency that you're going to want to update like the power of attorney documents. And so I think that's why just kind of like having that check-in and, is good, and having that relationship with the advisor, because usually they come to you first. I think people don't understand that. Like, I'm never going to have as many referrals for an advisor as an advisor can have for me. But I'm always like, hey, I give you a resource for you. Like if you had a question about how something works and I'm not going on the legal advice route, like I'm happy to talk and do some stuff. And, but they're usually coming to you all first. And you're the ones going, you need your estate planning done. And then, they come to us. I think it's very rare. I have people that come to me that don't have anybody. But it's way more often than not, I'm getting referrals from people who are working with somebody.
And that's the important part. Your estate plan is only as good as you implement it. It's only as good as you change the beneficiaries or the titles of the accounts, et cetera. You can have this amazing, beautiful, wonderful, all buttoned up estate plan. Yeah. And yet if you need to change your accounts and you don't, it won't work.
And it's annoying. I'm not going to lie. Like my husband and I, we had separate trusts because that's like what you did before 2012. And then we got a joint one and I was like, oh, I don't want to change my stuff. So I did pour over amendments. They're like, pay this to our joint trust. Now, there are reasons because there's like all this tenancy by the entirety stuff. So like new stuff that we do, I do it the right way. I follow like my own advice. But I totally get it. Like, it's annoying. And so you just want to do this like one time if you can. And, we try to make it as painless as possible, but it really is so much worse when you don't do it. It's so much of a pain. And like just having even, some banks are easier to deal with than others. Some it's like, oh my gosh, get that money out of there right now. Like, they are going to be a nightmare when you die. And I know you have to work with I'm not going to say who it is, but I know you all have to work with a custodian that's like pulling, it's like their paperwork is terrible and it doesn't make any sense. And I'm always like arguing with them and I'm like, this doesn't make any sense. This paperwork doesn't work. And, like, do a rollover, please. Get your money out of this place and over to your advisor so they can directly manage it, because these people are so hard to work with when you die. There are a couple of those things that are out there.
Yeah, so it's a good point that consider again getting more help, pulling the right professionals with the right expertise in when you're addressing this, because these are big things, big life ticket events, and you don't want to do it. I have certain verbiage in my mouth or in my head that I want to say, but you don't want to do it halfway. You want to do it the right way.
Right. You do. Yep. Nope. This is important. And I try to make it entertaining, like even on LinkedIn, like I talk about lots of stuff. I do the simple stuff. I do stuff like that advisors should be paying attention to. And sometimes I'll have a post and I'm like, why didn't, not enough advisors like that. I felt like that was so good. And then the algorithm just didn't like me that day. And my ego is seriously wounded. I know we talked about that earlier, like having that confidence and stuff like that. Sometimes you want to see my confidence at an all-time low. It's like a post that does not do well. Like my post, I made like a joke like on Friday or something, and I think I have like 12 likes. And I'm probably married to one of them, the daughter of one. I'm sure somebody I work with is another one. And I was like, this was funny. And then it had really interesting substantive knowledge for like people going to law school. But I'm going to tell myself they're all studying for the bar, so they weren't paying attention, the graduates. But, and then I even do like regular stuff, like that's just life, like executive presence, professionalism, professional etiquette stuff like that, that's all getting just how to even have good manners as a professional. Boy, lots of people could be reading some Emily Post business etiquette right now.
Just go over to Jennifer Belmont Jennings and you've got it all.
Yeah. Don't underestimate a little bit of etiquette and polish. It can come in handy every now and then too. So
definitely check her out there. The company website, is it
I'm at mgdlawfirm.com. Yep. So I'm on there too.
And you can also Google her.
And you can Google me.
We learned a lot about life, estate planning, financial planning, mindset, and just presence and everything around that and in between. So I thank you for coming on and sharing. Of course, I'm internally geeking out about a lot of things you were talking about because it's right up my alley. So again, thank you for coming on, sharing everything, and continuing to share online because we all need to learn more about this.
Well, thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
This concludes another episode of the She Lift Project podcast. To hear more episodes of the show, subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And to learn more about our mission of helping women reach higher levels of success, visit sheliftproject.com and sign up to receive the latest news, ebooks, videos, and more.